Get on the webinar. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, hi, my name is Candace Crespi, and I am the campaign director for the Oceanic Preservation Society, more commonly known as OPS or OPS. I'm a biologist and ocean conservationist. I grew up in South Florida, down in the Florida Keys, on the ocean all the time, and learned at a very early age that despite covering 71% of our planet and providing us with half of the oxygen we breathe, that the oceans and all its incredible creatures are in a lot of trouble. So I've been working with different conservation groups throughout my career, and something I learned early on is that you do not need to be a scientist or a researcher or a scuba diver to have an impact and call yourself a conservationist. Everyone out there has the potential to protect biodiversity, and I'm so excited to talk with you guys today and explain a little bit more about how my team and I use film, media, and public awareness events to raise awareness for and save endangered species. So OPS, who are we? We're a very small team of passionate artists, activists, and change agents that are committed to the sustainability and preservations of our oceans and the planet as a whole. We're most well known for our two large documentaries called The Cove and Racing Extinction. The Cove is about dolphin slaughters that happen off the coast of Japan, where these dolphins are then sent to theme parks like SeaWorld and the Miami Seaquarium, where these dolphins live a very miserable life, stuck in a concrete tank, being forced to do tricks for food. Our other film, our most recent one, is called Racing Extinction, and that follows a team of activists as they go undercover into wildlife markets, exposing the bad guys and being the voice for species on the brink. As campaign director at OPS, my role is to connect people that see our films with real life actions they can take to save the critters that they love so much. We're now going to watch a short little video from our executive director, Luis Sejoyas, that will explain a little bit more about who OPS is, what we do, and how we do it. Here we go.
When we look out over the ocean, we're looking out at it near. We're seeing the surface. We're seeing reflections of the sky, the first few molecules on top. And then the first time you put on a mask and put your head underwater, like there's a whole huge world of adventure.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that brief little introduction into OPS and what we do. So wildlife conservation, it involves many players. Throughout this webinar series, you'll be hearing from scientists, ecologists, activists, filmmakers, and each one of these passionate individuals has their own set of skills and objectives. A problem all of us are facing, however, is how do you take something you care about, something so important and in desperate need of attention, and get people to not only pay attention to it, but to care enough to take action. That's my goal at OPS. I want to inspire people to care about these issues that they often ignore. And to do so, we often have to take topics like ocean acidification, climate change, and present them in more exciting ways that haven't been done before. So if you look at this next slide, you can see some of what we've accomplished, because film is a very powerful tool. We like to call our documentaries weapons of mass construction. As you can see, we've reached billions of people throughout the world by thinking creatively, working outside of the box, coming up with new and innovative ways to grab people's attention and get them to care, get them to do something. But in addition to making movies, we also work to raise awareness in other ways, most notably through large live projection events on iconic buildings throughout the world. We like to say, let's give these creatures we care about the biggest platform we possibly can. Let's be the voice for the voiceless. So I'm now going to show you an example of that. Our first ever projection event back in 2014 that we did on the United Nations headquarter building in New York City. And the goal of this event was to inspire global citizens to take climate action and to demand that their leaders protect the world's ecosystems. We've done a few other of these events that you can find by doing a little Google search on the Empire State Building, on the Vatican in Rome, but this first one was my favorite, and I hope you enjoy it. Pretty cool, huh? And yes, that was all real. No Photoshop, no graphic designs in there. This was real life projections on a huge building. Can you imagine walking down the street and seeing this happen? You would be forced to pay attention. You can't ignore something like that. And I like to call this type of work artivism, Artivism, a combination of activism and art combined together to inspire people in a big way. So I'm happy to answer a question or two right now if anyone has them. Looking down in the text box now, I don't see any, so we'll just continue on for now. And I want to get to a key component of why I'm here and why I'm so happy to be talking to classrooms today is because education is a vital, vital component to building an effective campaign to protect wildlife. As one of my ocean heroes, Jacques Cousteau, once said, people protect what they love. Education, teachers, I'm now going to share with you some additional resources in the chat box. So the first thing coming your way is a virtual field trip. You can do this in your classroom and take your students on an inspirational journey from the Smithsonian's National Zoo. You'll meet whale sharks, scarlet macaws from your classroom and get an inside perspective on the cutting-edge conservation efforts being done around the world. And in the process, I hope your students will realize their potential to make a difference. And in addition, before you go on this virtual field trip, I'm now going to send you some other resources, lesson plans, classroom activities, that you can feel free to use. So let me send those your way. All right, you should have all of those now. I hope you use them, enjoy them, share them with your other teacher friends as well. Knowledge is power. All right, so let's talk a bit about biodiversity. Each and every species on this planet is important in its own way. Some animals, like dolphins and whales, are much easier to get people to fall in love with and to care about. But what about the creatures that are misunderstood? What about the creatures that people are scared of or think are ugly or creepy? How do we get people to care about those animals? To not only care about them, but to do something to help protect them. And now we're going to talk about my favorite animal, the shark. Unfortunately, the media has done a really good job at portraying sharks as these vicious, man-eating predators. But the truth is, kids, you're way more likely to get killed by a coconut, a vending machine, driving in a car, by a dog, than by a shark. More importantly, sharks are absolutely vital for a healthy ocean ecosystem. It's the circle of life. Think of a deck of cards. If you have a big card stack and you take one out, the whole deck will crumble. And that's how species work. They're all really important in their own ways. And my job and the job of my team at OPS is to help people connect with these species that may not be the more popular one, not the dolphins or the whales, but we're talking about sharks, plankton, those kind of critters. And I'm going to show you now another video that our team created to help educate and inspire people to revere and not fear sharks, to look at them as the jawsome creatures that they are. So sit back, relax, and I'd love to have you learn a little bit more about my favorite critters. All right, I'm back. I hope you guys enjoyed that film. I know some of those scenes might have been a little bit tough to watch with the dead sharks, but the truth is, right now, 100 million, hear that, 100 million sharks are killed each and every year. They're targeted for their shark fins, which are used in shark fin soup. They're targeted for their meat, which is either eaten, it's filled with mercury, not good to eat, or it's broken down and put into capsules, like shark oil capsules. But the sad part is a lot of people still don't care about sharks. People think, good, kill the sharks. When the truth is, as you saw in that video, without sharks, our ecosystem would collapse. And that would be a shame. So I'm going to go ahead and take some questions now. So let me scroll back a little bit here. And I see the first one. How can we make a difference in our own world? Well, making a difference, there's a lot of things you can do. Depending on what you care about, where you are, there's a lot of different factors that can play into answering that question. But the biggest piece of advice I can give you is find something you care about. You don't have to save them all. You know, as an environmental campaigner, there's a lot of issues I can think about. Coral reefs are dying. Fish are being decimated from the ocean. What else? Sharks are being killed. Dolphins are being stuck in tanks. These can be really overwhelming, and sometimes I have to sit back, focus my attention, and figure out, okay, how can I best make a difference with the skills, knowledge, and passion I have? And I encourage you guys to all do the same. If you care about dogs a lot, volunteer at a rescue facility near you. Encourage people to adopt dogs and not shop for them, because there's so many dogs out there that need loving homes. If you care more about healthy food and living, encourage your friends and family to eat less meat and try more of a plant-based diet. Try 3 times a day you have food. 3 times a day you have the choice to put something good for the planet in your body in your mouth, or something bad for the planet in your body in your mouth. I'm not telling you all to go vegan overnight. I'm not even telling you to go vegetarian. I'm telling you to make small changes. Once in a while, choose the meat-free option. If you choose to eat seafood, make sure you're not eating an endangered fish. For example, like tuna, not such a good idea to eat. And I'm happy to send teachers resources about that after this presentation if they have more questions. All right. Hi, 7th hour of biology. So next question. Our class has tried to do a couple of public awareness drives, but they rarely take off. What advice can you give to us, or what should we be thinking about when we plan? Great, this is a wonderful question. When putting on a public event, there's a few things you need to consider. Number 1, who is your audience? Are you trying to raise awareness for your peers? Are they for students? Is it for your teachers? Is it for your parents? Is it for a community leader or a lawmaker in your state? Depending on who your audience is, you'll have to kind of change your action plan. Kids are more inclined to enjoy visuals, where adults may be a little bit more open to reading a scientific paper. So be attentive to your audience. Next, always think creatively. Always go outside the box. And most importantly, have fun with it. Whether it's taking along your little stuffed animal friends, wearing a costume, having face paint on when you do a public event. There's creative ways to get people's attention and also to have fun while you're doing it. Mrs. S's class, I'm glad you guys like the visuals. And next question. What is the most important thing we 6th graders could do to support environmental sustainability? I know the most important thing you can do today. That is, I want you to talk to your friends and family about what you're learning. Conversations. Have them at the dinner table with your parents. Have them on the playground during your lunch break at school. Education is really powerful. Some people, it's not that they don't care about these issues. Maybe they just have never heard of it. Maybe they've never thought about it before. And you can help educate people. We like to use the analogy of lighting a candle. When you've got one candle lighting, you could take that flame and light another candle. And that's how movements are started. I encourage you all to study hard, to listen to your teachers, to study scientific facts, and not always believe what the media says. As you saw with that last shark video, the media has done a really good job at showing sharks in the opposite way of what they actually are, which is beautiful, smart, and sentient creatures. So that's the best thing you can do, is spread the truth, raise awareness, talk to your friends, teachers, family about what issues mean the most to you. As a next step, try to get involved locally. Do you have an environmental studies club at your school? If not, go start one. Volunteer with local animal rescues. Once you get to college, reach out to me and come volunteer for OPS and get some school credit while you're at it. All right, let's do the next question. What makes people kill sharks for their fins? The biggest reason people are killing sharks is the shark fin trade. So these things, shark fins, they're tasteless. They do absolutely nothing medicinally, but people still tend to think that eating shark fins is a sign of nobility, and it makes you strong and powerful and cool. The truth is, eating an endangered species is not cool. Would you eat a bald eagle or a rhinoceros? No way! So why would you eat a shark? It's the same sort of principle. There's a few other reasons people are cutting shark fins off. One is bycatch. Often when big fishing boats go out to the ocean, for example, going after tuna fish, they put out these really big nets or these really long fishing lines with thousands of hooks on them. And unfortunately, it's not just tuna that get caught. Sometimes it's a shark or a turtle or a dolphin or a bird. And most of the time, these animals don't survive. And instead of throwing them back in the water dead, fishermen are now realizing that they can take these dead species, we call them bycatch because they're not what they are supposed to be catching, and they can sell them in markets. We know that about 70% of the planet relies on the ocean for their staple source of protein. The problem is we're exterminating fish from the sea so fast right now that people are going to start to have a problem finding food and protein. All right, let's go to the next question. Why have I taken an interest in sharks? Oh man, why do I love sharks? Because they're awesome! I grew up falling in love with sharks at a very early age. I grew up in South Florida, snorkeling and then scuba diving, and always on the water. And I used to watch these incredible creatures, the way they swam back and forth. It just mesmerized me. I was always so intrigued by these sharks. Also, my favorite movie growing up was Jaws, Peter Benchley's film, which didn't do much good for sharks, unfortunately. After that film came out in the mid-'70s, people were petrified to go in the water. They thought there was this big man-eater out there, when the truth is, less than how many fingers I have on this hand, that's how many people are getting killed by sharks every year. It's very, very small. But films, we know they're very powerful, just like we use films at OPS. Jaws had the exact opposite effect. It made people scared. But for me, as a little kid, I was fascinated with Jaws. I wanted to go out there on that boat and touch this cuddly big creature. I thought they were just the coolest animals I'd ever seen. And I've continued to fall in love with sharks the more I've gotten to know them. Whether it's reading scientific papers, going out on a dive, and interacting with these animals face to face. They are incredible, and they're curious. They will swim past you and look at you and not come after you, just check you out, just like I'm checking them out. And the more time I spend in the water with them, the more I respect and appreciate sharks. I've even had the opportunity to remove two hooks from a shark's mouth, where they had hooks right there, and on a dive in the Bahamas, a shark built enough trust with me after spending a few hours in the water, and it swam by and allowed me to grab the hook out and remove it. The shark then did a big circle, came back around, and passed right by me, almost to say thank you. And it was in that moment I knew I was doing something right. I knew that I had to be the voice for these creatures, because otherwise we're going to lose them, and then we're going to lose the oceans, and then we're not going to be able to breathe, and that wouldn't be very cool. All right, next question. A student would like to know what happens if all the sharks were extinct. Oh, that's a depressing question. A lot of horrible things would happen if sharks went extinct. I'd like to think that would never happen, but let's dream right now. In a fantasy world, our conservation efforts have failed. Sharks are in a lot of trouble. What would happen? Number one, sharks are in the ocean at the top of the food chain. One of their roles is to remove sick fish from the ocean. Just like if a person is really, really sick, they're brought to a hospital where they're quarantined to make sure they can't infect other people. Same thing goes with the oceans. When a shark sees a sick fish, it's most likely going to make that fish dinner, and then the rest of the fish population is going to be saved from all of them getting sick. Other roles that sharks play, they regulate the ecosystem. It's a top-down effect. You have sharks, what the sharks eat, what those fish eat, etc., etc., etc. If sharks weren't eating the next tier down, this tier would grow astronomically. And then under here is the small tier. If there's too many at this tier, they're not going to have enough food. And then the whole food chain is out of whack. So maintaining that balance in the oceans is super important. We're also learning new things about sharks every day. We're discovering new species of sharks every day. There's research being done with shark skin, with shark teeth, trying to change technology for humans for the best. So if sharks were to go, we would surely be in a lot of trouble. All right, next question. Do we have products that we use daily that contain shark byproducts? For example, makeup. Unfortunately, the answer is yes. There are many products out there that have shark in them. In addition to shark meat, you can, in some states, right now 39 out of 50 in the United States, shark fins are not illegal. You can sell, buy, eat shark fins. Problem is, they are filled with mercury. So eating this is really bad for you. Just like they tell pregnant women not to eat fish, they also tell them not to eat sharks because mercury is really bad for your brain. And we know these are really important. So aside from shark meat itself, some of the products that sharks are put into in the form of shark squalene, which is a type of oil, are, aside from makeup, are health supplements. Sometimes you see health crazes come up like omega-3 fish oils. Problem is the labeling. A lot of time these products don't indicate what species are inside the capsules. Is it a fish? Is it an endangered fish? Is it a shark? Is it an endangered shark? Usually we don't know, and that's the problem. Until companies take responsibility to label their products and provide consumers with the correct information to make smart buying decisions, the only thing you can do is avoid these products that may have shark in them. Some states you can also have shark in the form of shark fin soup, where they take the fins, they take this the material and they put it into a soup. If you ever offered shark fin soup, please say no. And more importantly, ask questions. Where'd you get your shark fin soup? What species is it? Right now, there's a handful of sharks internationally that are completely protected. You cannot kill and eat them. Our job at OPS, in addition to making these films, is busting the bad guys. And if we get wind that someone is selling an endangered species that they're not supposed to, we're going to do something about it. So if you guys find something, let me know. All right, let's do the next question. How can sixth graders support environmental sustainability? Any recommendations? Sixth graders, if I can be in sixth grade again and do this all over, of course there's stuff you can do. Most importantly, in your personal life. In your school, are you guys still using styrofoam? Knock that off. Are you still going to places like SeaWorld where they're exploiting animals for human entertainment? Go whale watch in the wild instead. There's little things you can do to make sure your school is doing the best they can. Encourage your teachers to talk more about climate and science. Most importantly, one thing you can do right now is stop using one-time use plastics. Plastic bottles, plastic bags, containers, all these plastic materials are made up of little beads of plastic that when they're broken down, go into the ocean and get eaten up by all the creatures there. For example, turtles. Turtles like to eat jellyfish. When you put a plastic bag into the ocean and it's floating along, it almost looks like a jellyfish. So turtles are eating these, it's blocking their digestion system, and they're dying because of us, because of our addiction to one-time use plastic products. So little things you can do. Avoid plastic. Encourage your family to do the same. Instead of taking a bunch of plastic bags home from the grocery store, bring your own bags. Instead of using plastic bottles, use reusable bottles. Ditch those plastic straws. Get yourself a really cool metal straw or bamboo. They work really well, they're really cool, and you can feel good when we use them. All right, next question. What can we do to help the animals in the oceans? There's lots of things you can do, starting with education. Continue to learn about the ocean. I bet you didn't know that every other breath you take comes from the ocean. Go breathe, ready? Then take one more. That second breath came from the ocean. Without our oceans, we wouldn't be able to breathe. And then life as we know it on this planet would collapse. And that would be a shame. I encourage you all to take what you're hearing here today and share it with your parents. You're really powerful as children, as brothers, as sisters, as grandchildren. Whatever you're learning here today, from me, from the other speakers, whatever means the most to you, whatever sticks with you right here, go home and talk about it. Tell your parents you want to be more active when it comes to conservation and protecting animals. Whether you love dogs or cats or bees or wolves, whatever it is, we're all connected. There's no species that's more important than one another. So I encourage you guys to please learn more and have these conversations in your everyday lives. All right, I've got one of my favorite classes out there about to ask a question. We had the #1 football safety in the U.S. wear a sticker on his helmet at a national football game. Jeffrey wanted to do more after watching The Cove. The game was in San Antonio. And that is exactly how you can make a difference. Jeffrey, normal student, saw The Cove, and he was inspired to want to help the Dolphins. He's also a phenomenal football player. So when he got the opportunity to go in front of a large crowd, with TV there, with press there, with all these different teams, he took whatever he had the capability to do to raise awareness. So he took a sticker about dolphin conservation and he put it on his football helmet. That is powerful. That is how each of you can make a difference. Find what you care about and make something out of it. You know? All right. What is let's see. A lot of questions. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to be talking to you. What is my favorite land animal? Well, I'm biased. My favorite land animal is my dog, Frankie. But I really do love just about every animal. There's none I don't like. I do have an affinity for the large animals out there. So like lions, for example. The way, like sharks, they're able to regulate an ecosystem is absolutely incredible to see these noble creatures that others respect and walk next to in awe. It blows me away. I also care about the little guys. I love bees, and bees are in a lot of trouble. So if you care about pollinators, if you care about food, if you care about flowers, bees are really important. So I encourage you to look into that yourself and learn how you can, in your own house, your own community, take action to save the bees. What did you name the shark you helped? I actually didn't name the shark I helped. The place we were diving during that time was called Tiger Beach. It's in the Bahamas, and many of those sharks actually already have names. from people building relationships with them. This specific shark, I'm not sure if it already had a name or not. I do have pictures of it, but for me, that shark was not just an individual. To me, it was sharks as a whole. It was the species as a whole, and my chance to give back, connect with them, and be reminded that we can help. We can all make a difference. If you take the opportunities that you're given, give back, the reward you're going to get is much greater. You're going to feel good. You're going to be inspired to do more. And more importantly, you're going to be able to help another creature. And that is freaking cool. All right, next question. How long have you been studying sharks? Well, I've been interested in sharks since I was probably 4 or 5 years old, down in the Keys, playing with them on the reef, snorkeling with them, looking at them. But as a professional, I'm a biologist by trade. So in college, I really started digging into the biology behind species and biodiversity. And over the past 9 or 10 years, I've really focused my efforts on species conservation in relation to the ocean. I love all sharks, but I do have an affinity for certain creatures. Whale sharks are some of the coolest animals out there. They can be up to 40 feet long, as big as a school bus, but they're as gentle as can be. They don't bite, they don't hurt, they eat plankton and krill. They're filter feeders, these big, gentle giants. And I love whale sharks because not only is it mind-blowing to swim next to an animal that's 40 feet long and has no intention to hurt you, but they're an endangered species and they need our help. Just like many other sharks, they're being hunted for their fins, for their meat, for their oil. And unless we stop hunting these animals, I'm afraid that my grandchildren are not going to be able to see a whale shark in the wild. Just like the dinosaurs. You know, I love dinosaurs, but I've never seen one. How cool would it be if they were still around? And I would hate for future generations to have to think about sharks in the same way as relics, as something they read about in a book instead of being able to go out and experience in real life. All right, next question. Do you ever get down working on these issues all the time? Oh, absolutely. Sometimes being an ocean conservationist can be extremely depressing. I see a lot of destruction. I see a lot of creatures being just wiped out. I see people taking advantage of natural resources for something as silly as money. That being said, with all that depressing stuff, with all the destruction I see, there is so much hope out there, and that's what keeps me going. I have a down day sometimes. I read an article, I see a picture of one of my favorite places in the world that has had a bomb thrown on its reef, and the bomb gets exploded, and all the fish die, rise to the surface. The fishermen scoop them away, and that reef is left dead for years to come. But at the same token, I'm working with incredible people to defend our oceans and protect the reefs and enact measures to make sure things like that cannot continue to happen. So yeah, I do get really down, but I have to remember that without hope, we have nothing. Without hope, people turn to apathy, and we can't let that happen. Now is the time, it's more urgent than ever, that people come together and they care about these issues, that they do something about them, no matter what it is. Agriculture, oceans, land critters, whatever it is, GMO crops. You can get depressed about it, but take that anger, take that negative energy, and use it for good. Use it as fuel on your fire to make an impact. All right, what is my favorite type of shark? I hit that. That's the whale shark. You're welcome for the shout out. Your class is awesome. All right, next question. What does it mean when an orca's top dorsal fin goes from straight to droopy? That can be a much longer conversation. I think you guys have another presentation today about orca and whale captivity and whales in general. So I won't speak too much, but unfortunately, when you take a wild apex predator like an orca, also known as a killer whale, and you put it in artificial conditions, things change. These whales swim 100 up to 100 miles a day in the open ocean. They jump and they breach and they dive and they work in family groups. They care for each other when they're sick. They mourn their dead. But when you take one of these wild creatures and you put them in a false enclosure, things change really dramatically. Analogy I like to use is, if you were going to study humans, would you want to look at a human like me who can walk free, have the freedoms to do whatever I want? Or would you go to a prison and study someone who's locked in solitary confinement for 23.5 hours a day? It's that simple. An animal in a false enclosure is not the same animal. It's a captive animal. And there's a lot of reasons why the dorsal fins start to droop. From a scientific perspective, 99% of orcas in the wild have straight fins, where those in captivity are often drooped over. So there's a direct correlation between the detrimental effects of captivity and wild orcas. So please never go to places like SeaWorld. If your school goes to theme parks that have captive whales or dolphins, feel free to get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to work with you to encourage your school to change their field trip and to not support destructive habits and destructive practices like imprisoning a wild animal, and instead help your school do things that are better for the planet and more educational for you students. Next question, have I ever seen a live shark birth? I wish. I haven't seen one in person. I've seen one on video through a live stream, but I haven't yet. But I promise I'm never going to stop diving with sharks, so I'm sure I will one day. All right, I'll do a few more questions, and then we're going to watch one more video before we wrap up. Did I ever have a dangerous encounter with a shark? No, sharks aren't dangerous. Sharks are awesome. I've never felt threatened in the water with sharks. The only time I've felt threatened has been in markets where they're selling sharks, and I've been trying to push the store owners for information about where these sharks come from. Just like drug traffickers or any other bad guy out there who's trading in a product that's not good, it can get very scary and controversial. So no, under the water, there's been nothing scary with sharks, just lots of smiles. What path did I take in college to get to where I am? All right, so in college, I've always enjoyed the science and biology behind our Earth systems. So in college, I studied biology, cellular and molecular biology, figuring out on a tiny little scale the cells and microorganisms, how do systems work? Humans, animals, plants, the sky. How does the basic biology behind these systems work? And that piqued my interest. I actually went through a natural disaster, Hurricane Katrina, back in 2005 while living down in New Orleans, Louisiana. And after being displaced, something inside me changed. I knew that I had to do something to protect this planet as a whole from disasters, whether it's man-made disasters or natural causes. So a mix of my biology background fueled with this burning desire to need to make an impact to the planet got me to where I am today. After college, I did a lot of volunteering to get experience in environmental conservation, working with a variety of different groups to figure out how can I best make an impact. As a biologist, I didn't want to sit in a lab and do research. I wanted to take the knowledge I had and share that with students and give people the tangible tools to fall in love with the critters I love so much and make a difference as well. Because ultimately, we need as many people behind us as we can get. It's all about that people power. All right, there's a few more questions, but I'm going to hold off. I'll take a few at the end. I have one last video clip I want to share with you guys. For our last film, Racing Extinction, we had an incredible soundtrack to go along with the film. One of those songs we produced with the artist Sia. You guys might know Sia. And it was called One Candle. And we created a music video for One Candle that combines our messaging with our large projection event on the Empire State Building to reach people. So I'm going to share that music video with you now, so you can hear a little bit of music after talking about some of this not so happy stuff, see a little bit more about what OPS does, and then we'll be back to answer a few more questions. So while the video is playing, if your kids have any more questions, please get them in, because we've got to wrap up in a little less than 10 minutes. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And we have plenty of more original music like that from the soundtrack to our film. And to you teachers out there, if you haven't seen our films, I'm happy to work with your classroom, your school, to do another like interactive in the classroom presentation with our film. So feel free to reach out to me. I am going to type my email address into here right now. And on this slide, you can see our websites, our social media pages. We use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr. Feel free to follow us, get in touch. We want to hear from you. And I am going to take a few of these questions that are outstanding before I say my goodbyes. And one of my favorite questions is, what is the most important critter in the sea? The most important critter of the sea is one that you can't even actually see with your eyes unless you have a microscope. That's phytoplankton. Phytoplankton, what's that? Tiny little critters. And they're the most important organisms on the planet. These organisms use the sun rays to produce half the global oxygen, like I talked about, the way we breathe. Phytoplankton are creating that oxygen. Phytoplankton are single-celled algae, not dissimilar to our terrestrial plants. And they harbor chlorophyll, which is the main apparatus for photosynthesis, which you guys may have learned about in your science classes. But how this all relates back to general conservation is phytoplankton are fundamental in helping us fight climate change. By using carbon dioxide and water, phytoplankton can transform it into carbohydrates and oxygen. Therefore, they're sucking the carbon dioxide that we emit into the atmosphere out, and they're putting out oxygen and putting that sequestered carbon down into the bottom of the ocean. Kind of storing it down there. So may not have been the most exciting answer. It's not as cool as, let's say, these guys, but phytoplankton ultimately are the most important creatures out there. And they're really beautiful under a microscope. All right. So I can probably do one more question. So if you guys have any more, do them right now while I do my wrap up, and I'll answer one final question. But I just wanted to take this last minute to thank you all so much, the educators out there, all you incredible students out there, for taking the time to listen to me for an hour and look at conservation, activism, biodiversity from a different way. Everyone out there has the opportunity to make a difference. As you heard in that song, the main lyric, it said, "It's better to light one candle than curse the darkness." And that is what I want you guys to do. Whatever you take away from today, whether it's from my speech, Paul Watson's speech, Rick Wood's speech, do something about it. Learn more about it. Do some research. Spread it to your friends and family. Start a campaign in your school. Reach out to me to help volunteer. Whatever you want to do. Find something and roll with it. All right, my last question. Oh, I love this question. How perfect. What is the coolest part of my job? This is the coolest part of my job. I love taking the opportunity to reach people, to reach the youth. Ultimately, our parents are old. They're not going to be able to do that much. But the younger generation, all of you students out there, you've got the power. You've got years ahead of you to make a real difference. And the opportunity to talk with you guys, to inspire you, to work with you, to make a difference, that's absolutely my favorite part of my job, is talking with youth and giving them the tools to become mini activists. I hope you guys all encourage your friends and family to make a difference, get involved. Please keep in touch with me and with our organization. You're awesome. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great weekend, okay? Bye, everyone.